ask yourself, why does God allow us to go through a lot of sufferings? Bakit pinapabayaan o pinahihintulutan ng Panginoon na tayo ay magkaroon ng mga pagsubok sa buhay? Hindi ba't mas maganda kung puro ligaya na lang, there's no problem, there's no pain, lahat na lang ay walang problema? Isn't it more important for us so that we could have more comfortable life? Why does God allow us to go through a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort and difficulties in life? Perhaps some of you are experiencing health problems, may mga karamdaman tayo. Some of us are experiencing financial problems, mga problema sa pera. Some of us perhaps have problems with our relationships, perhaps with our children, with our parents, with other people. And so there's an endless list of problems in our lives. So I want to ask you, why does God allow us to go through all of these problems? That's why I want us to look into the Bible today and specifically study the story of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. I want to use this story to illustrate to you the reason why God allows us to go through so many difficulties in life. So let's go there, brethren. Let's go to John 11, verse 1 to 3. John 11. Let's pick up the story here. John 11, verse 1. It says here, now a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany. So that is the name of the person who was sick, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. It was that Mary who anointed Yahweh, the Lord or Master, with fragrant oil and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore the sisters sent to him, saying, Master, behold, he whom you love is sick. So Lazarus was sick with a very, I would say, very malala na yung kanyang karamdaman. He has this very worst sickness. And Martha and Mary sent for Yahshua so that Yahshua would heal him. Now Yahshua, verse 5, loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So the Apostle John was telling us that Yahshua loved Martha and her sister Lazarus. So in logic, when naturally, if you love someone, then you are going to heal that person, right? But no. Verse 6 tells us in verse 6, so when he heard that he was sick, did Yahshua immediately go to Lazarus? Pumunta ba siya agad dun? No. He stayed 2 more days in the place where he was. In verse 11, these things he said, and after that he said to them, our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may wake him up. You see, brethren, this is the first lesson that we should learn from this story. There's a purpose for our suffering. I think that's the first thing that we always forget when we go through life's difficulties. We forget that our suffering and the things that we go through in life has a purpose. And that's why, brethren, in this story, the story of Lazarus, we could see that Yahshua has the power to heal Lazarus immediately. He has the power to heal him right there and then. He doesn't need to be there physically. Hindi na kailangan pumunta ni Yahshua dun. Just say the word and Lazarus would be healed. And yet, brethren, what happened? The problem is, at least from our view of perspective, from our point of view, Yahshua didn't heal Lazarus. Instead, he deliberately waited. Hindi siya pumunta agad. He didn't go to Lazarus immediately. He waited. And that's why, brethren, the same is true in our life today. We ask for God's healing, but there's no healing. We ask for God's help, but there's no help. We ask for God's intervention, but there's no intervention. We know that there's nothing that is too hard for God. He can heal us. He can help us. And He can definitely intervene for us. But the problem is, God chose not to. Why, brethren? Because there's a reason. And Yahshua gave us the reason, brethren, why He allows us to go through these difficulties in life. In verse 4, it tells us, when Yahshua heard that, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. And then he added in verse 15, and I am glad for your sakes. Now, Yahshua just mentioned that Lazarus is already dead. And yet, what did he say? And I am glad for your sakes that I was not there. Why? That you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go to him. Now, there's a purpose, brethren. There's a purpose for why we go through life's difficulties, because all these things would help us to glorify Yahweh. Pero parang ang hirap intindihin, no? Why? How could our suffering, how could be the difficulties in life glorify God? Paano ito nakakapagbigay ng luwalhati sa Panginoon? Why does our suffering, why do we have to suffer to just simply glorify God? Now, because these things, brethren, would help us to believe and to grow in faith. Now, imagine, brethren, what would happen if God will prevent all the difficulties in life? Ano kaya mangyayari? If God will prevent that our life would just be smooth sailing, walang problema, puro saya, lagi may pagkain, lagi may pera, what would happen, brethren? Imagine if God didn't allow Joseph to be sold into slavery. What would happen if the Israelites didn't become a slave? What would happen if God didn't allow the Israelites to end up in the Red Sea? What would happen if God didn't allow Hannah to be barren? What would happen if God didn't allow Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to go through the fire furnace? What would happen if God didn't allow David to face Goliath? Have you ever imagined that, brethren? What would happen if God prevented all these problems in life? We wouldn't have the story of deliverance, of faith, and patience. Because these things would help us to learn valuable lessons in life. That's why, brethren, imagine if God would not allow any difficulties in our life. We will never grow in faith. We will never know pain and appreciate fully the blessings in our life. We will take for granted the life that we have. Now let's proceed the story, brethren, in John 11, verse 20 to 25. So, this was the time that Yahshua already decided to go to Bethany, to go to the house of Martha and Mary. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Yahshua was coming, went and met him. But Mary was sitting in the house. Now Martha said to Yahshua, Master, if you had been here, kung andito ka lang sana, my brother would have not died. If you have been here, Yahshua, my brother would have been still alive right now. He would have not died. Isn't these words familiar, brethren? In times of suffering, these could be the same words that we could be saying to God. God, Yahweh, kung sana lang, if only you would do this. Kung sana lang hindi mo pinahintulutan mangyari ito. Kung sana lang ganito, ganyan. And we start to blame God for what is happening to us. It's easy to say, if only. But here it is, brethren. What was the response of Yahshua? What was the response of Yahshua to the words of Martha? In verse 25 to 26, it says, I am the resurrection and the life. You see that, brethren? This is our ultimate hope. I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Brethren, this is our ultimate hope, the resurrection of life. We know that no matter what happens in this life, we will live again. If you're going through financial trouble, brethren, you can say, I will live again. If you're going through health problems, you can say, I will live again. If you're going through troubles and hardships, brethren, I will live again. There's a hope for me for the resurrection. Now, the question of Yahshua for us is this. Do you believe this? He asked this question to Martha, and he is also asking this to us. Do you believe the resurrection of life? In verse 32 to 35, it says here, Then when Mary came where Yahshua was and saw him, she fell down at his feet. So earlier that was Martha, and now this is Mary, who came to Yahshua. She fell down at his feet, saying to him, this is the same words that Martha used, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Now, this is the same word. These are the same words, but look at the reaction of Yahshua. He has a different approach with Mary. Verse 33 says, therefore, when Yahshua saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her weeping. Now you can sense that there's an atmosphere of the place that is filled with sorrow and pain. Everyone was crying. Everyone was in pain. Now Yahshua groaned in spirit and was troubled. He was filled with compassion. And notice what happened, brethren. Yahshua wept. He wept, brethren. He cried. Now, why did Yahshua have to cry? Bakit kailangan pa umiyak ni Yahshua? He knew very well what would happen next. He knew he has the power to bring Lazarus back to him. He could have simply gone straight to the tomb and declared to the people, hey guys, you don't have to cry. There's nothing to be sad about. I'm here. I'll show you what I can do. I am the Son of God. I can resurrect Lazarus. I can bring him back to life. But no, brethren. Instead of saying those things, brethren, he felt compassion for the people. He felt mercy. That's why, brethren, he wept. He cried. He mourned with the people. And what happened was that Yahshua was sympathizing with the grief and sadness of the people. And he was so overcome with compassion for these people that he literally cried. And I believe that is something that we almost always forget, brethren. That God and Yahshua could feel the same emotion as we are. We often imagine the Father and Yahshua to be so far from us, diba? That they are perpetually in a joyful state, that they are always in a positive mood. But the Bible tells us, brethren, that they also feel sadness. And when we are sad, they are also sad for us. And when we are happy, they are also happy for us. That's why, brethren, I want us to remember that we will go through life's difficulties. Don't think that God doesn't care. He cares more than you ever know. As our Heavenly Father, it hurts Him more than it hurts us. Diba? Yan yung linya ng mga magulang natin. Mas masakit pa sa akin to. That's why, brethren, we may not be delivered from the difficulties that we're going through right now, but I can assure you that Yahweh is with us all through the way, and He will give us the strength, comfort, and strength, and faith for us to go through life's difficulties. With that said, brethren, I hope you learned an important lesson from this message. When you experience trials in life, remember the story of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. It is my sincerest hope, brethren, that you and I would endure and stay faithful until the return of our Savior.